Hey, Lorell.
Hey, Brooke, I'm here. I've got the children settled for a moment and I've got my coffee. How about you?
Better believe it. The kids are settled and I have my coffee. I've got some chocolate as well.
Yum.
I'm so glad that we're both able to carve out some time to chat today. I would love to take advantage of the brief time we have to go deep, to really get to the heart of things, not just chit chat, but beyond.
I agree. Let's go deeper beyond chocolate and coffee. We are here to encourage each other as we share the real life experiences of two homeschool mamas loving Jesus, being loved by Jesus, while living in the trenches and serving our families.
So grab your favorite treat and favorite cup of joe and join us as we carve out time to go beyond chocolate and coffee.
Welcome, homeschool mamas. This is episode 3 of Beyond Chocolate and Coffee, and today we talk about how to homeschool. And this podcast took a little bit of a different direction than we anticipated. We didn't follow our notes very closely. Hopefully you can follow along, and hopefully it will bless you as much as it did us. So here we go.
How do we homeschool? What does it really take to be a homeschool mama? Dictionary.com defines education as the act or process of imparting or acquiring general knowledge, developing the powers of reasoning and judgment, and generally of preparing oneself or others intellectually for mature life. Wow, there's a lot in that definition.
There is. I see several things in that definition. One, I see the role of the teacher,
Yep.
This imparting general knowledge, this developing the powers of reasoning and judgment,
Right.
preparing others intellectually for mature life.
Right.
But there's the role of the student in there too.
That's right.
We have this acquiring
Mhm.
general knowledge.
Mhm.
Again, the developing the powers of reasoning and judgment. But there's also this generally of preparing oneself
Right.
for mature life.
Right. The
in there.
student
So
cannot be just passively sitting by. This is active on their part. They have to actively be involved in their own education, just as the teacher is actively involved in the role of teaching. The student has to actively be involved in acquiring this general knowledge.
Yes. And you know, as we read this definition, as we discuss these roles, I mean, what I'm really seeing is relationship.
Yeah.
Because the relationship in the role of the teacher and the role of the student, that relationship is really important.
Yeah, there has to be trust there. I'm seeing that they have to trust each other, but it has to be loving. Like they have to
Yes.
mutually have a respect and a love for each other so that we can easily impart and acquire, knowing that the other person has good in mind for them.
Yes.
And it's not just wasting my time, but that it's a good thing. It's something good for me. And so I'm seeing trust and love between the student and the teacher.
Yes. This relationship between the teacher and the student, I mean, that's really important. And I can speak from experience how important my relationship was with my children.
Yeah.
And as we discuss relationships, though, I mean, I think, gosh, the most important relationship is with God as our Father,
right.
And how important the foundation of having a relationship with Him is to any other relationship in my life, and how that foundation has to be there first before I can then have something to pour into somebody else. And to be able to build a relationship with somebody else, I have to first have the right relationship with Him.
Right.
Because it's real easy when that relationship is not quite right to then have the human relationships in my life
be not quite right.
Yeah. Well, and looking for fulfillment in those relationships when I should be looking for fulfillment in my relationship with God.
Right.
I mean, our human relationships are fulfilling, but the ultimate
Yes.
fulfillment has to come
From God.
from my relationship with God.
Right.
I've got to view him right, and my relationship with him.
Right. And so, because we're wanting to teach our children how to have a relationship with God, that the only way we can do that is by modeling what it looks like to have a relationship. And I think sometimes it's so hard as mamas to be vulnerable with our children and go, hey guys, this is where I'm struggling. And this is how I'm dealing with that struggle is I am taking this to God and I am laying it at his feet. And when, like, in the past, I have been a yeller. And so I have taken that to Jesus and said, this is not how I want to treat my children because they are your creation. And him working in me and me being able to go, okay, hey guys, I know I yelled and I'm going to apologize to you for that. But I caught myself. So I'm going to count this as a win because God is redeeming me. God is changing me. God is transforming me. It's not overnight. And I'm constantly bringing this back to God so that now yes, I'm human and there are occasions that I do still yell, but it's not my pattern. It's not the way that I treat my kids. It's not how I speak to my children anymore because and they got to see that because I modeled it to them that this is an area in my life that needs to be changed. And I showed them how I fail, but God's mercies are new every day. Can you forgive me one more time? And I would go to them and ask for forgiveness. And I'd go to God and ask for forgiveness. And they were able to see me model my relationship with Jesus to them, that when they have something going on in their life, I can go, have you taken it to Jesus? And they know what it looks like because they've seen the way that I have a relationship with God. And I think that that is so important too, is that when we're teaching, we can't teach just by words. We have to teach by modeling.
Right.
That it's this, hey, come alongside me and watch how I do this because I'm not doing it perfectly, but all I can do is model what I know to do.
Yeah. Yeah. And in that modeling is very important. And as we as we discuss these roles of teacher and student, building that relationship, first with God, and then modeling that relationship that we have with God with our children, working on that relationship between them to have that place of mutual trust, and having that place of mutual respect, how important that is. And you're talking about modeling the act of repentance and forgiveness with your kids. How many times I have thought to myself, the children are the best forgivers. I have been so amazed how quickly my children forgive me for something, and how much the Lord has used that to teach me about just forgiveness. It's that easy, that simple. We are forgiven.
And they don't hold a grudge. And so to see that grace, that they will give grace so beautifully and so quickly. And then it helps us remember to give them grace because they're kids. And it's so easy to get so frustrated and go, you did it one more time. But then we go, wait a minute, they have forgiven me and I have been forgiven by Jesus of so much and so many times. His mercies are new every day. So my mercies need to be new with my children every day. And it's that building of relationships, of that constantly going, hey, we're in this together and we're just going to keep learning and growing together, but ultimately always pointing them back to Jesus and back to God.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So we're looking at this definition of education. This, again, the act or process of imparting or acquiring general knowledge, developing the powers of reasoning and judgment, and generally of preparing oneself or others intellectually for mature life. So there's another point there. We've got the role of the teacher. We've got the role of the student.
Right.
We also have the goal here. We are preparing for mature life. And, as we are preparing our children for mature life, as Christians, our first goal is we want them to be a mature Christian. We want to prepare them for life as Christians. Of course, we have a part to play in that, but ultimately God and the Holy Spirit. They're the only ones
That's
that
right.
can convict and save. We have a role. We have to do our
Yes.
job. We have to be obedient unto the Lord, but we cannot
Right.
guarantee salvation, or any result
it's
is not
not.
guaranteed by homeschooling. We
Right.
just make sure that's clear up front. But nevertheless, we
Right.
want
Right.
to prepare our children to be mature Christians. So we are going to teach them the word. We are going to
Yes.
teach them that foundation. But I see in that, as we are preparing them for mature life, again, there's
Right.
something that we don't know that God does. We don't know who
Right.
they are going
Right.
to be. And only God does. And there is a great deal of dependence on him. You know, I think of myself. You know, my husband is an engineer. I love math
Mhm.
and science. He loves math and science. It was really easy, you know, just a, you know, simple example, really easy to think,
Right.
we're going to have math and science children. And, you know, to my firstborn, it's great in math and
Right.
science, but
Right.
that's not her love. I mean, she's doing her algebra. She can do the science, whether she wants to or not. But she's not the math and science lover. And so just, you know, in the process of raising her, at some point I had to say, okay, I'm going to teach her the math, but this is not where she really wants to be spending her time. And I had to acknowledge the fact that I did
Right.
not know what her future held. And there is a measure of teaching our kids, and we don't always know what we're
Right.
teaching them
Right.
to be. And there's as our role, sometimes we're almost like sounding out, trying to find those gifts and talents, and where are their strengths, where are their
Right.
interests, and
Because
where are they headed.
it's our job to give them the
Because while
basics
there's
and to teach them how to learn, so that when God goes, okay, here's your calling, we don't have to teach them all of the things if we have given them the foundation that they know that they can learn, and then they can go finish their education in what they need to. We're going to make sure they have their basics in math. We're going to make sure that they have their basics in science. We're going to make sure they have their reading and their writing and the basics that they need to get through elementary school and middle school and high school, and prepare them for college, or for a trade school, or for music school, or for the ministry, wherever it is that God is calling them. We're going to make sure they have those basics. But we can't say, oh, okay, yay, you love math, so you're obviously going to be a mathematician in life. We can't do that. And I think that's where you're headed, is that we don't know where they're going to go as an adult, so we can't give them all of the education that they're going to need, but we can get them prepared so they can get that higher education that they need in whatever form that looks like.
Yeah. Well, and again, I'm seeing these relationships between the role and the student of,
yes.
Like we have to work together on this. Like it was really easy for me when I was teaching a kindergartner to think that I had kind of a plan for 12 years, of how I was going to homeschool and kind of the methods and curriculum that I thought I was going to use. And, in retrospect, I look back and I've had to change a lot, and I've had to be willing to change. I've had to humble myself to the fact that, like, these are my plans and ideals of where I think my children are going to go. And I got to lay that down and actually say, like, who is my child? And there's this cooperation of, as a parent, I'm the parent, I'm the teacher, I'm in charge. But by the same token, this is a child, and there's got to be a cooperation of learning what they are interested in and who they are in order to guide them into who they're going to be. And there's got to be a cooperation with God and with His plan.
For sure, because
this is a multifaceted.
It's not just they're not just children that we're teaching. They are God's workmanship. They are created in His image. They are His image bearers. And when we remember that they are a whole person, like they really are a person. They're not just a little mini me that is going to grow up to be a bigger me. They are God's workmanship, created in His image, not Brooke's image, God's image. And so we have to completely trust God with them. And we have to learn how He has created them so that we can teach them the best way that they're going to learn. because they have learning styles. They have ways that they learn easier than
Yes.
others. They have subjects that are going to come
Yes.
easier than others. And so when we remember that they are God's image bearers and that they are a gift to us to hold on to for a little while and raise them so that they can
Yes.
do the purpose that God
Yes.
has called them to, then it helps us to see them and to have that cooperation with them, because now we're truly trusting God completely to show us how to teach them. The child now can completely trust us because we're not just force feeding education on them, but we're truly learning who they are and teaching to them the way that they need to
Right.
be taught.
Right.
And so now they can trust us. We're learning them better. And it is definitely these relationships that have to work together. And there has to be so much love and trust in the middle of those relationships, or all the way around.
Yes. 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 And I mean, as I look at this definition, I think of the need for a challenge, for a teacher to challenge a student, to get
Right.
them to move higher, to get them to move higher, to get them to move higher, to be willing to do the work that it takes to progress. And that fine line between, am I
Right.
challenging my student or am I pressuring my
Encouraging.
student? Am I, you know, am I encouraging them, or am I discouraging them because they feel like they're never measuring up, or they're feeling like it's too hard, or
Right.
gosh, even sometimes
Right.
some other need has not been met. Maybe there's a physical
Mm-hmm.
need that I haven't even been aware of, or an emotional need, and how, I mean, gosh, you think of an athlete, one of these Olympian athletes that's at the height of their
Mm-hmm.
career, the height of their physical abilities, and the amount of
Right.
time they've put in. They've had somebody to challenge them
Yes.
along the way, but they've had to feed into every part of their life in order to do that. I mean, they got to make sure that they are physically nourished and physically
Right.
challenged, but emotionally, they've got to have support and encouragement from the other people around them. And in
Yes.
order to
Yes.
challenge at that level, there's a really big
And it's the same way
picture
with education, is that we can't
that's
just
going
look
on.
at a
And
kid and go, I'm going to educate
I
you,
mean,
and think that if all we do is pour knowledge at them, that they're going to become intellectual. Because that's not the case. We have to take care of the whole person. We have to make sure that they're nourished physically and emotionally and relationally and spiritually, and in every part of their life, that they're being challenged and loved and nurtured so that they can grow intellectually.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. So there's a real, wow. There's
For
a
sure.
lot in that. Just that one definition of education. Oh my goodness. And the role of the teacher,
Yeah.
and all that it takes to actually just impart knowledge. I mean, you can watch a YouTube video and actually just, YouTube video can impart knowledge, but this developing the powers of reasoning and judgment, preparing one intellectually for mature life, there's a whole lot more to
Mm-hmm.
that than just simply buying a
Right.
curriculum or subscribing to a particular homeschool method to really make that
Mm-hmm.
happen. There's a lot in the work of that relationship between parent and child,
Yes.
and really getting to know who they are, their interests, their
Right.
strengths, their passions. You touched on learning styles as well, like really, really learning how they learn, and the way that they think.
Yeah. I mean, because that's the thing is, there are three main types of learning. There are three learning
Right, right.
styles.
And we could,
You have your auditory kiddo. That's the one that likes to hear information. That's the one that's singing all of the tunes from all of the commercials and can recite what you just said to them word for word, even if they don't understand it. Like, they are the ones that anything that comes in through the ears, they remember it. So they love the songs, they love the jingles, and they love books being read aloud to them. That's your auditory kiddo. And I've got one of those. My middle one is an auditory kiddo.
Right.
He can hear something and he is not going to forget it. And I'll be like, when did you hear that? You weren't even in the room when I was talking to your dad. And he was like, I don't know. I just heard it. He heard y'all talking. I didn't even realize that. Like, he's doing something else. I didn't even realize that he heard us talking, but he hears the conversations.
Right. Yeah. And as far as learning styles, you've got the visual learner, the one that primarily learns through visual, through seeing the pictures or reading the book themselves. They really, like, you can tell them the information, but it doesn't stick the same as when they see it. So you've got that visual learner. And then you've got your kinesthetic learner.
Oh, yes.
That must learn by doing, by moving, by working, by actually doing the project themselves, building that example machinery.
Yes.
I've got one child that I can remember did not seem like he was paying attention at all. Constant motion. And I did when he was little, before I knew better, made him sit still while I was reading the scripture. And if I asked him while he was sitting still and I would read to him, if I asked him what I said, he couldn't remember. He was spending so much energy focused on just being still that he couldn't hear.
Yes.
But he could be upside down on the couch, bouncing on the exercise ball or whatever, and be able to understand what was going on.
Yep.
So much better.
I have one that we would do our math worksheets. Like, we'd have a worksheet of math problems, and we had one of those small little mini trampolines, the rebounders.
Oh, yeah.
And he would jump, and he would do an entire worksheet in like 5 minutes of whatever math it was. But if I asked him to sit down at his desk and do it, there would be tears, and he would be still sitting there an hour later because he couldn't think. Because he was sitting. Because, like you said, that just took so much energy to sit that he couldn't think through the problems. Whereas if I let him get up and move, then he could do all the problems that I wanted him to do in like 10 minutes, and it would be crazy. Yeah. And so, your kinesthetic kids, they're usually the ones that to teach seem to be the most challenging. Because we still have that public school mentality that you're supposed to sit in a desk and do your worksheet, but they're a lot of fun to teach. Like, if you can start embracing that kinesthetic mode of learning, they're a lot of fun to teach.
Yeah. They're usually the ones, too, that when you give them a chore to do, they do it the fastest.
Yes.
When they put their mind to it. So that's a pleasant plus.
It is a pleasant plus. I agree with that.
Oh, goodness. We didn't spend a whole lot of time on visual.
Yes.
I think sometimes they seem like the easiest to teach. Because
you
just need to see it.
Right. You just hand them the book. You hand them the book, or you hand them the cookbook, or whatever it is. You just hand it to them, and they look at it, and they get it. So they don't. They do. They really seem to be the easiest. There doesn't seem to be quite as many challenges teaching a visual learner as there is your auditory or kinesthetic. Because your auditory learner is always singing. Always sound.
Always sound.
And your kinesthetic learner is always moving. And so then you get your visual learner, and they seem to, don't get me wrong, these are very general, and you can have a combination of 2 or 3. This is a very general overview of these learning styles.
Yes.
But your visual kid, they can kind of seem like the kid that's sitting in the corner reading a book all the time. And you're like, yay, I'm doing such a good job. Look at that one.
We have no pride at all that we've ever had to deal with. Oh my. Yeah. But I have found, and I don't know about you, but I've got, like my musical child, that's very auditory. Yes. Very auditory. Like, she hears the music, she can play it. Very auditory. But by the same token, there's other subjects that she's more visual.
Yes.
And so I've had to be careful there too in
labeling,
being too general with the labels. Like, oh yeah, that one's an auditory learner. No, that one's a visual.
Right.
I've found that there's some subjects are different. Like my musical child is very musical, and she wants to hear it. She wants to hear in great detail. Repeat that again. But in other things, like for math, I mean, she would rather have the textbook and looking at it and doing it herself.
Right.
And even when I try to come in and explain a question that she
Right.
has, it's usually through looking at the book and working it out herself that she actually understands it. And then I love to read.
Mm-hmm.
I tend to be more visual, but by the same token, when I start really thinking and really getting excited about a subject and my brain is working, my hands are usually moving. I find I start pacing and my legs are moving and
got to move to get the information back out. It's almost like, because I'm the same way. Like, I'm almost like a visual intaker of knowledge. I don't know if that's how you would word that, but I visually take in knowledge. But if I need to get that knowledge back out to explain it to somebody, or to, like, if I'm trying to sort it through in my brain, I very much need to move. Like, I've got to get moving so that it can all come out, whatever that form looks like. And so it's so funny. And then my oldest son and myself, we're both oral processors. So, like, if we're working on something, we have to talk about it to actually, like, I have all these thoughts and I can't get them to gel. Can you just sit here for a minute and listen? Just listen to me. And then, like, I start spouting stuff and they're looking at me like, okay, my eyes glazed over 5 minutes ago. I have no idea what you're talking about anymore. And I'm going, but I have it now. Yeah. Now I understand. And so my oldest is the same way. Like, he'll go, Mama, I don't understand this math problem. And I'll come in there and I'll sit down. Okay, well, explain it to me. Explain to me where you got lost. And in the process of telling me the problem, he goes, oh, never mind. I got it now. I'm so glad I could be here to be your sounding board, baby. It's so funny too that sometimes the way they take in information isn't the way that they get information back out. And it's so funny how, so it's easy to be very broad with learning styles and labels and all of that stuff, but there's always a lot more that goes into it. It's much more complex than a simple, auditory.
Yeah, which takes us right back to the whole topic of relationships. Relationships, this isn't something that we can just sit and take a little test and write down a few keynotes and say, this is how I'm going to take this information and present it to my student, and my student's going to be a really good student and just take in everything I give them, and then they're going to be able to regurgitate it in a way that I understand, that they understand. and it sure does explain a lot over the years. How many times, I mean, to be honest, how many times have I had to just stop and, like, okay, something's, what isn't working here? And spend some time working on a relationship. And then, like, the whole time I'm thinking, like, how am I going to solve this? How are we going to learn this science, or how are we going to handle getting this project done, or whatever? But when I took the time to actually work on the relationship, the rest of it kind of took care of itself.
Because you got to know your child a little bit better. You got a little bit closer to them, and then you're able to meet the need that's going on, and then the teaching can happen. Yeah.
It's like, it's not really about the method or the curriculum or the textbook or how we're going to get this done by a deadline.
It's about taking care of relationships.
And it's about the relationship. This is
we're kind of going way off outline here. Like, this isn't really where we were planning on taking this one, y'all. But God had other plans. So
I know we got a whole list of methods and curriculum that we talked about we were going to discuss here, but
it really
just keeps coming back to relationship.
You can't teach if you don't know who you're teaching.
Well, I mean, if you don't know who you're teaching, but also they've got to trust. They've got to trust and respect, and they have to respect to the point that you say, like, I know you can do this, and I know that this is a challenge, and yes, it's time to be challenged. You are in a place where it's time for you to be challenged and time for you to step up. I know that you could step into this. And I know that you could rise to this.
Scripture tells us that we have to get off of milk and get on to meat. And so we have to do that same thing with our children, is that we have to go, okay, you've been getting milk.
Yes.
You need something a little bit harder, because that's what God calls us to. He calls us into more. He calls us to step up. That's what we're supposed to be doing in our spiritual life. And we have to help our children do that, even with subjects that they don't want to do or they don't enjoy, or even the ones that they do enjoy. enjoy, but they've come so easy, and now we've hit a snag. That isn't, they're,
or
yeah.
they're scared, or they're just scared. There's so much on the line.
Yes.
You know, I have high school students now, and there is even, in one of mine in particular, just this fear of like, what if I can't? What if I can't do it? What if I don't make it? What if I don't get that transcript filled out? And there's like some fear that I'm having to help this child work through, and believe, like, I believe that you can. I believe. And again, I'm pointing back to God. Like, God has a plan for you. I even if I can't see where you're going to be in 4 years, God does.
Yes.
And we can trust him. And I know his plans for you are good. They're not to harm you. They're to do you good. And, something you said there about, you're drinking milk and you need meat. I mean, I've been studying through Hebrews, and it says the same thing. It's we have to leave these elementary doctrines, and we have to move forward.
Yes.
And we have to help our children with that too. But we also have to do it in a loving way. I mean, like the author of Hebrews, didn't come and beat them over the head and say, like, you should know this. No. I'm not even going there again. You've already the author of Hebrews went through and challenged them, but did and was willing to go through and talk about it all again if that's what we need to do. We're going to talk about it, but by the same token,
we're not going to stay here.
We do need to move on,
and
the
because
danger
in not stagnant,
The danger in not
got to say and have fresh waters and flowing waters and rivers of life, and not become stagnant, and continue to press forward and continue to move on and continue to, because we have to challenge them so that they can learn how to challenge themselves, so that as they become adults, they continue to search after God. They continue to be into his word and know that it's the living word for them right that moment. And they can only do that if we have taught them how to be challenged and how to go, I don't understand it right now, but I'm going to keep pressing forward so that I do understand.
Yes. And it comes back to something else you said earlier about modeling.
Right.
We ourselves have to model what it looks like to be challenged. And we ourselves have to be, as adults, as parents, we have to be willing to still be challenged wherever we are. And we have to be willing to step forward into that challenge, even when it's hard, even when we're afraid, even when we don't know what the future holds for ourselves. And, I've got several areas that I feel like that's what the Lord has been showing me. Like, okay, it's time for you to keep stepping forward. It's time for you to accept this challenge. Yes, I know this is stretching you. Yes, I know that this is challenging you. Yes, I know, but you got to keep stepping forward. And I have seen that as I have taken those baby steps forward, I have seen a response in my children. Like, okay, even mom and dad are still challenging themselves intellectually and emotionally. They're still learning. They're still willing to read some hard books. They're still willing to admit they don't know it all and keep pressing forward.
I think the biggest teachers to my kids are when I go, I don't know. Wow. Let's go find it together. Because that teaches them, I don't have to know it all. I just have to be willing to go find the answers.
No. Wow. Yes.
Yeah, there is.
There's a lot in this. I mean, because the role of the teacher, because just like you were saying, not being stagnant. I mean, we can't be stagnant. If we're like, hey, we have learned all that you need to know, so here it is. And we just kind of sit back and fold our hands and like, okay, now you just do it.
Yes.
Just do the work.
That it's a lifelong journey of learning. That it's not, education is not a, so it's not a goal. Like, we don't just say, okay, we're educated. Yay, we're done. Like, graduation, the tassel being moved, that is the beginning of the process for them. And so we have to know that what we're doing now is setting them up for a lifetime of learning. And it's not just, okay, I graduated high school, I'm done. I never have to pick up another book again.
No, not at all. So, I mean, I can't help but obviously this is going somewhere we weren't quite expecting. This podcast and this topic was going somewhere, but I can't help but just stop and ask our listeners, like, so where is your challenge?
Yes.
Which books are you reading, and which topics are you going after, and which areas of your life do you feel like maybe the Lord's challenging you, and maybe you've been holding back out of fear or anxiety.
That's right.
Or whatever. I'm kind of feeling a little hesitant even asking this, but as a listener,
we want to know, is there an area? Because we can pray with you guys.
Yes, but just even asking yourself that question, you might be amazed how if you just step into that with the Lord,
for sure,
you might see a huge growth in your children that you were not expecting.
That's right. Because it's
anyway. But if you feel free to share that with us, then feel free, and we're here to talk about it more. But if that's just a personal question, and you just ask yourself, wow, this sometimes those areas we don't realize how much they are for
us,
our children, as much as they are for us.
For sure.
So anyway, I know we have notes here on educational methods and styles.
But I'm going to go with that. If you're homeschooling, you know the basics. I don't think that we need to run through what a classical model is or the Thomas Jefferson unschooling, lap books, unit studies, traditional, Charlotte Mason. They're there. And if anybody is interested in learning more about, the methods of homeschooling, we would love to talk with you guys about that. But I feel like God has kind of said the notes and just needed to go on the wayside, because I feel like I've learned a whole lot through this podcast, just talking through this, that it's not, because how we homeschool isn't about the method. How we homeschool is really about the relationships. And that is what God is just showing me over and over and over again, is that I have to make sure that my relationships are in good order, that they're healthy. And when they're healthy, then now we have an environment that learning can happen, that education can happen, because we have a healthy environment to work in.
Yeah, and we have to be careful not to define our children by what we perceive as weaknesses.
Very true.
This is a point. Sometimes, we talked about learning styles, a kinesthetic learner. There are children out there that really do have ADHD and
true learning disabilities.
Or other issues, right? The list could go on of what they could be. We have to be careful not to define them by those so-called weaknesses or deficiencies or disabilities, because sometimes those are actually gifts. They're going to have a different. There's a strength part to those things that's God has a plan and a use for them,
because they're going to see things differently than other people.
And that's where, and that's where we can, as parents, develop that relationship and speak into them and speak life over them. And you may struggle here, but here's the gift that comes out of that. And here's how God could use you. That kinesthetic learner,
you're going to be on the mission field to go dig the water holes overseas with the people. They're going to have the energy, whatever it is. God has a purpose for that energy and that movement.
Yes. And so finding the gifts in that instead of just seeing that and speaking life over them in that, so they can believe that the plan God has for them is going to be good and amazing. And I know we have the scripture here, and I'm not sure how it fits in, but Galatians 5:22 and 23. I don't know how it fits in. We have it in our notes. I just feel led to read it, so I will.
That's right.
Scripture's never wrong, right? But the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness.
How hard was that for you to read without singing? I'm just curious.
That was hard. Yeah, I was trying word by word, so I didn't break into song, because there's a song there.
This is the filter for our homeschool. This is the filter for our life. This is the filter for how we're treating our children and for how we're treating ourselves. And we have to remember that we have to use this for ourselves as well. And how are we treating our husband? How are we treating those around us? The fruit of the Spirit is our filter. If we are showing patience, are we showing patience to our children? Are we showing patience to ourselves? Are we having a hard day, and are we showing patience to ourselves? Are we showing goodness? Are we modeling self-control so that we can help our children with self-control? Okay, I know I totally interrupted you. You can continue reading. you read the words.
You did. That's okay. That's okay. I let
Yeah.
you. I gave you permission. Well, I mean, even as I read through that, though, I'm like, that's the real.
It really
how
is.
you
That's how it
homeschool.
fits in.
It really is.
Yes,
You really
joy.
homeschool with love. You homeschool with joy. You homeschool with peace. How do you homeschool? With patience. How do you homeschool? With kindness. With goodness. How do you homeschool?
Knowing
with
that you can't see the end, but being faithful in the small things. Knowing that it's going to reap a harvest down the road.
Okay, and I'm going to say this because I have used this list in the past to condemn myself, but I'm going to remind myself and all of you, this is a fruit of the Spirit at work in our lives. And, the scripture goes on and it says, those who belong to Christ Jesus, they have crucified the flesh with its passions and desires. And then it goes on to say, if we live by the Spirit, let us also keep in step with the Spirit. Let us not become conceited.
Prideful.
Let us not become, I see conceited, let's not become prideful in one particular method or one particular style or one particular curriculum or one particular goal that we have in mind. Let us not provoke one another. Let's not envy one another. Somebody else that you might think has it all together, or look at how that method works for them, or look at how this curriculum works for them. That's not how we do it. We live by the Spirit. We keep in step with the Spirit. There's mutual care. There's mutual respect. There's nurture. There's love. And we have to receive it as well as give it. But it's by the Spirit. And how do we live by the Spirit? We just keep going back to the cross. We keep saying, here's my flesh. Here's my burdens. Here's my sin. Lay it at the foot of the cross. And we just accept his life, his forgiveness. Washing us clean. And the Spirit is at work in our lives. It is. And we just cooperate. And it's as we learn this, we can teach it to our children. Again, we're going back to the modeling.
One more.
Okay.
Hebrews 11:8.
I don't know.
By faith, Abraham obeyed when he was called to go out to a place that when he was to receive as an inheritance, and he went out not knowing where he was going. There's a lot of time I feel like my homeschool looks like that.
Ooh. That's powerful.
I don't know where I'm going. I don't know what that place looks like.
That is true.
But I'm going to be obedient. And I'm going to go out by faith, knowing that God has went before me. He has prepared the way. And he is waiting for me. And it is an inheritance. That my children are an inheritance. The time that I spend with my children is an inheritance. And that God is with me.
Yeah, and though we don't know where we go, we follow and we obey because we know who we are following. Right.
So if you haven't listened to the Who podcast, that was our first podcast. Go back and listen to the Who. But I love that. I love that y'all, we're just like Abraham. We don't know where this gig is going to end up at, but we're just obedient.
Yes. And it's a joy. It's a joy. It's a great privilege to be a part of these children's lives, to be a part of the teaching that God would want to use us to train up his children, to teach his children. That's an amazing thing. I have to read Isaiah 45, 5-6 now. I am the Lord, and there is no other. Besides me, there is no God. I equip you, though you do not know me, that people may know. Okay, so in this case, so that our children may know. But yeah, of course, the broader people around us as well. But anyway, I equip you, though you do not know me, that people may know from the rising of the sun and from the west that there is none besides me. I am the Lord. There is no other.
He equips.
He's going to equip us.
That's the thing, is that there are so many days that I go, I'm not equipped for this. And Jesus whispers to me, that's okay. I didn't call the equipped. I equip the called. And so, guys, he's going to equip us. He is going to go with us. He goes before us and he goes behind us. He is our fire by day and our cloud by night. And I think I just said that opposite. He is our cloud by day and our fire by night. But he goes before us. He goes behind us. He seals the way. He provides everything we need. We just have to be obedient. We have to love these babies that he has given us. And yes, I have a 14-year-old and he's still my baby.
Yes.
So we love these babies. We trust him We're
Yes.
obedient to the call that He has on our life. And we are willing to be challenged as we challenge our children.
Yes. Yes. Wow.
All right. I think that's it. We love you guys, and we will see y'all in 2 weeks. Let us know if you feel free to share with us where you are being challenged, where God is asking you to stretch. And reach out to us. Let us know if this is helping you guys, if this is a blessing to you guys, and where you are at in your journey. And we will be praying for you guys, and we'll see y'all in 2 weeks. Bye.
Thanks, friends, for joining us. We hope this has been more than just chit chat, and this has taken you beyond just sharing chocolate and coffee. It is our prayer that you have been encouraged by this podcast and that you will have more to offer your family on this homeschool journey.
Yes, and please remember Romans 1:12, that we may be mutually encouraged by each other's faith, both yours, the listeners, and mine, Lorell and mine. So drop us a line about your journey at beyondchocolateandcoffee.blogspot.com so that we may be encouraged by what God is doing in your life. As you share with us, it will strengthen us and encourage others. It might even inspire future podcasts. Write us a review to help get the word out so we can encourage others.
Awesome. We will meet you back here in 2 weeks.
Bye.